Foofi is way ahead of us in this reading of JAWS. Hello everyone, it's Elisa Maria from Elisa Maria Designs. Welcome back if you are back, and welcome if you are new. And if you are new, let me explain to you what is going on. We're doing a reading, well, my husband John is doing a reading of Peter Benchley's JAWS. And you'll see his video pop up in the corner in a second. I just wanted to say hi. I also wanted to tell you the diamond painting that I am working on here. It is Curtis Reichovich's Daydreamer Mermaid. And she was what I was working on for Mermaids and Magic. However, I didn't get very far, so I figured don't put her away. Just let's work on her while we do this reading of JAWS. So get your fishy canvas out or listen along like a podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Here we go.
Today we're reading Peter Benchley's JAWS. It was first published in 1974. Chapter 1. The great fish moved silently through the night water, propelled by short sweeps of its crescent tail. The mouth was open just enough to permit a rush of water over the gills. There was little other motion, an occasional correction of the apparently aimless course by the slight raising or lowering of a pectoral fin, as a bird changes direction by dipping one wing and lifting the other. The eyes were sightless in the black, and the other senses transmitted nothing extraordinary to the small, primitive brain. The fish might have been asleep, save for the movement dictated by countless millions of years of instinctive continuity. Lacking the flotation bladder common to other fish and the fluttering flaps to push oxygen-bearing water through its gills, it survived only by moving. Once stopped, it would sink to the bottom and die of anorexia. Once stopped, it would sink to the bottom and die of anoxia. The land seemed almost as dark as the water, for there was no moon. All that separated sea from shore was a long, straight stretch of beach, so white that it shone. From a house beyond the grass-splotched dunes, lights cast yellow glimmers on the sand. The front door to the house opened, and a man and a woman stepped out onto the wooden porch. They stood for a moment, staring at the sea, embraced quickly, and scampered down the few steps onto the sand. The man was drunk, and he stumbled on the bottom step. The woman laughed and took his hand, and together they ran to the beach. "First, a swim," said the woman, "to clear your head." "Forget my head," said the man, giggling. He fell backwards onto the sand, pulling the woman down with him. They fumbled with each other's clothing, twined limbs around limbs, and thrashed with urgent ardor on the cold sand. Afterward, the man lay back and closed his eyes. The woman looked at him and smiled. "Now, how about that swim?" "You go ahead. I'll wait for you here." The woman rose and walked to where the gentle surf washed over her ankles. The water was colder than the night air, for it was only mid-June. The woman called back, "You sure you don't want to come?" But there was no answer from the sleeping man. She backed up a few steps and then ran at the water. At first her strides were long and graceful, but then a small wave crashed into her knees. She faltered, regained her footing, and flung herself over the next waist-high wave. Water was only up to her hips, so she stood, pushed the hair out of her eyes, and continued walking until the water covered her shoulders. There, she began to swim with the jerky, head above water stroke of the untutored. 100 yards offshore, the fish sensed the change in the sea's rhythm. It did not see the woman, nor yet did it smell her. Running within the length of its body were a series of thin canals filled with mucus and dotted with nerve endings. And these nerves detected vibrations and signaled the brain. The fish turned toward the shore. The woman continued to swim away from the beach, stopping now and then to check her position by the lights shining from the house. The tide was slack, so she had not moved up or down the beach, but she was tiring, so she rested for a moment, treading water, and then started for shore. The vibrations were stronger now, and the fish recognized prey. The sweeps of its tail quickened, thrusting the giant body forward with a speed that agitated the tiny phosphorescent animals in the water and caused them to glow, casting a mantle of sparks over the fish. The fish closed on the woman and hurtled past, 12 feet to the side and 6 feet below the surface. The woman felt only a wave of pressure that seemed to lift her up in the water and ease her down again. She stopped swimming and held her breath. Feeling nothing further, she resumed with her lurching stroke. The fish smelled her now, and the vibrations, erratic and sharp, signaled distress. The fish began to circle close to the surface. Its dorsal fin broke water, and its tail, thrashing back and forth, caught the glassy surface with a hiss. A series of tremors shook its body. For the first time now, the woman felt fear, though she did not know why. Adrenaline shot through her trunk and her limbs, generating a tingling heat and urging her to swim faster. She guessed that she was 50 yards from shore. She could see the line of white foam where the waves broke on the beach. She saw the lights in the house, and for a comforting moment, she thought she saw someone pass by one of the windows. The fish was about 40 feet from the woman, off to the side, when it turned suddenly to the left, dropped entirely below the surface, and with 2 quick thrusts of its tail, was upon her. At first, the woman thought she had snagged her leg on a rock or piece of floating wood. There was no initial pain, only one violent tug on her right leg. She reached down to touch her foot, treading water with her left leg to keep her head up, feeling in the blackness with her left hand. But she could not find her foot. She reached higher on her leg, and then she was overcome by a rush of nausea and dizziness. Her groping fingers had found a nub of bone and tattered flesh. She knew that the warm, pulsing flow over her fingers and the chill water was her own blood. Pain and panic struck together. The woman threw her head back and screamed a guttural cry of terror. The fish had moved away. It swallowed the woman's limb without even chewing. Bones and meat passed down the massive gullet in a single spasm. Now the fish turned again, homing on the stream of blood flushing from the woman's femoral artery, a beacon as clear and true as a lighthouse on a cloudless night. This time the fish attacked from below. It hurtled up onto the woman, jaws agape. The great conical head struck her, like a locomotive, knocking her up out of the water. The jaws snapped shut and around her torso, crushing bones and flesh and organs into a jelly. The fish, with the woman's body in its mouth, smashed down on the water with a thunderous splash, spewing foam and blood and phosphorescence in a gaudy shower. Below the surface, the fish shook its head from side to side. Its serrated, triangular teeth sawing through what little sinew still resisted. The corpse fell apart. The fish swallowed, then turned to continue feeding. Its brain still registered the signals of nearby prey. The water was laced with blood and shreds of flesh, and the fish could not sort signal from substance. It cut back and forth through the dissipating cloud of blood, opening and closing its mouth, seining for a random morsel. But by now, most of the pieces of the corpse had dispersed. A few sank slowly, coming to rest on the sandy bottom where they moved lazily in the current. A few drifted away just below the surface, floating in the surge that ended in the surf. The man awoke, shivering in the early morning cold. His mouth was sticky and dry, and his wakening belch tasted of bourbon and corn. The sun had not yet risen, but a line of pink on the eastern horizon had told him that daybreak was near. The stars still hung faintly in the lightening sky. The man stood and began to dress. He was annoyed that the woman had not woken him when she went back to the house, and he found it curious that she had left her clothes on the beach. He picked them up and walked to the house. He tiptoed across the porch, gently opened the screen door, remembered that it screeched when yanked. The living room was dark and empty, littered with half-empty glasses, ashtrays, and dirty plates. He walked across the living room floor, turned right down a hall, past two closed doors. The door to the room he shared with the woman was open, and a bedside light was on. Both beds were made. He tossed the woman's clothes on one of the beds, then returned to the living room and switched on a light. Both of the couches were empty. There were two more bedrooms in the house. The owner slept in one. Two other house guests occupied the other. As quietly as possible, the man opened the door to the first bedroom. There were two beds, each obviously containing only one person. He closed the door and moved to the next room. The host and hostess were asleep on each side of the king-size bed. The man closed the door and went back to his room to find his watch. It was nearly 5 a.m. He sat on one bed and stared at the bundle of clothes on the other. He was certain the woman wasn't in the house. There had been no other guests for dinner, so unless she had met someone on the beach while he slept, she couldn't have gone off with anyone. And even if she had, he thought, she probably would have at least taken some of her clothes. Only then did he permit his mind to consider the possibility of an accident. Very quickly, the possibility became a certainty. He returned to the host's bedroom, hesitated for a moment beside the bed, and then softly placed his hand on his shoulder. "Jack," he said, patting the shoulder. Hey, Jack." The man sighed and opened his eyes. "What?" "It's me, Tom. I mean, I hate like how to wake you up, but I think we might have a problem." What problem?" "Have you seen Chrissy?" "What do you mean, have I seen Chrissy? She's with you." No, she isn't. I mean, I can't find her." Jack sat up and turned on the light. His wife stirred and covered her head with a sheet. Jack looked at his watch. Jesus Christ, it's 5 in the morning. And you can't find your date? I know, said Tom. I'm sorry. Do you remember when you saw her last? Sure, I remember. She said you were going for a swim and both went out on the porch. When did you see her last? On the beach. And then I fell asleep. You mean she didn't come back? Not that I saw. At least not before we went to bed. And that was around 1. I found her clothes. Where? On the beach? Yeah. You looked in the living room? Tom nodded. And in the Henkel's room? Tom blushed. I haven't known her that long. For all I know, she could be a little weird. So could the Henkels. I mean, I'm not suggesting anything. I just wanted to check the whole house before I woke you up. So what do you think? What I'm beginning to think, said Tom, is that maybe she had an accident. Maybe she drowned. Jack looked at him for a moment and glanced again at his watch. I don't know what time the police in this town go to work, he said. But I guess this is as good a time as any to find out.
It's not the movie. Okay. Thank you.
We're now going to discuss Chapter 1 of JAWS by Peter Benchley.
Okay, so thanks for reading.
Of course.
Everybody's been wanting you to read.
And
while you were reading, I don't think that well, okay. So while you were reading, you get the image of the movie in your mind.
well,
I do.
Okay,
So while you were reading, I had the image of the movie in my mind, and what I can say is that it's two different things.
well, Elisa, of course,
Okay, stop.
No, wait.
Stop, because that's not what I wanted to say.
I know, but I want to start this discussion because you raise a good point. As a lifelong reader of books.
Well, that's what I wanted to say.
As a lifelong reader.
Here's my question. The question is not about the book versus the movie. The question is, okay, really what I wanted to say when you were reading, and I was thinking about you reading, and you being a lifelong reader, and an avid reader, and an engaged reader, and you are an engaging reader when you're reading, right? So I wanted to know how you felt reading the book out loud.
Well, the first thing I would tell you is my neurodivergent brain is completely different from yours. So one of the things that I do not do, or at least willfully try not to do, is imagine or compare what the film representation of the book. Because, again, there are two different mediums, reading and visual. So, for instance, when you take a book like JAWS and you decide to put it on the screen, all kinds of decisions have to get made. Decisions that would not have to be made by the reader of the book.
I never read JAWS.
Oh, okay.
I only saw the movie. So I'm going back to my childhood when we saw this.
Yeah, you were like 14 years old.
And yeah, we just watched it not too long ago, maybe a few years back. And also what's burned into your brain is the poster. Because the poster had Chrissy in the poster.
The poster, and then also the theme song of when the shark is about to attack. That
right.
dun 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 dun.
And it amps up.
Dun, 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 dun,
so
dun.
that's interesting too. When you think about how the music was made, because if you think about what you just read and how the shark really didn't, it wasn't just like, oh, there's someone in the water, let me go get her.
No, because they can't really tell they can't really.
Like
so when the director is the storyteller in a movie, You understand? When a book is written, the author is the storyteller, and the author creates the narrative that you read and imagine. But once they get the rights to film a book, now it's the director whose vision and narrative has to be followed. And, you know, again, I think that...
Which was Spielberg.
I'm saying, you know, we could have a long discussion about good choices, bad choices. You know, one of the things I found amazing, again, to bring up Ken Kesey and Cuckoo's Nest, Kesey was not happy with the adaptation to the screen, because if you've read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the narrator of the book is the Indian. So, because the Indian is telling the whole story from his perspective, the reader knows from the beginning that he's not deaf and he's not dumb.
Everybody said he was going to compare the book to the film, which gets down to, you know, you got the writer's writing, and then you got the director's vision of how he's going to put it on the screen. But let's just stick with JAWS and Peter Benchley, and maybe a little bit of Steven Spielberg. But being a writer myself, now I don't write screenplays, I don't write books or anything like that. Descriptive writing, I found that Peter Benchley was very vivid and very unsettling, and I don't know if that's the way he's going to be throughout the whole book, but I wanted to know.
You want to ask me how I felt as I was reading?
No. I wanted to know, being that he is he's so vivid and so unsettling. It was unsettling listening to you. She's in the water, and I was holding my breath, and I was, you know, you can't help but not imagine this going on. Were there any lines that stuck with you when you were reading that?
I wouldn't say there were lines that stuck with me, but as a lifelong reader, I have to read out loud, which again, I've actually been reading aloud since, you know, early in grade school. I would be called on to read aloud. Yeah. So I actually, it's something I like to do, read out loud. But reading out loud is not the same as reading in your own mind, wordlessly and silently. So when you read out loud, you have to sometimes do affectations and you know, vary your tone and your voice to signal which person is speaking. And so, you know, in the book, you know, words will be in quotes, and obviously, you know, I'm not going to say quote, end quote, while I'm reading to your subscribers and your fans.
There were no lines in that chapter that stuck out to you, because usually when I'm reading a writer, I just read Gibran. And there are so many lines when he talks about children that I'm like, the way that he puts a sentence together,
but Gibran,
there are lines in my head that I'll never forget.
Khalil Gibran is writing about, I would say, profound things, sacred things. This is not. This is
Julia Cameron and...
But I'm saying, Benchley is writing a work of fiction, and he's a very, in my opinion, effective, good writer. He reminds me, he writes, in my opinion, in the style of Hemingway, very simple, declarative sentences.
Yeah, I like that.
And the words themselves and the meanings of the words will actually put into the reader or the listener a sense of foreboding, or fear, or terror.
I was afraid.
Yes.
I was afraid.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that. Having read the first chapter only of the book, he really does set the tone of this book, because it's only one chapter, and you're already
into the first chapter.
You're already immersed in the narrative and the story, because you know the story kind of alternates between the fish and the guy. You know, there's not much about. I mean, the girl gets a little bit in it, but he just talks about how she reaches down and her foot's missing, her leg's missing, and then she realizes that that's her blood, and you know she's in shock, and her body's coursing with adrenaline. Of course, it's a horrible,
Yeah, so you're in
horrific
chapter 1,
death.
which was how many pages?
What's that?
How many pages? It didn't seem like it was that many pages. 10?
I don't know. I have to check. I don't know how many pages it was. But
So-
I checked it before we started, and I wanted to only do chapter 1 because I thought the one chapter in and of itself would be enough for us to read.
Right,
and,
it was. It was perfect.
It's, let me see. Oh, no. It's only about 9 pages.
Yeah, I figured it was about 10 pages. So...
But I like that. I like the fact that we can read a chapter and then have a discussion and a conversation about that chapter. But of course, I think we have to have that toggle switch that switches between reading of the chapter we just, speaking about or discussing the chapter we just read, and then also holding that new chapter in with all the other chapters we've read. And even, most of us, I'm sure, at least saw the movie, if not read
I
the
feel
book.
like watching it again now that you're reading the book.
But I'm saying, we kind of all know what the story is and how the story's going to play itself out, which is,
But, okay.
it takes a little bit away from the beautiful prose and writing because, when you're reading anything and an author's developing characters, you have this curiosity of wanting to know, well, what's going to happen to this character?
So
what's going to happen to this character?
So he set the stage, okay, with the way that he wrote this first chapter, and I think that even took us as kids watching it on film. We didn't know what to expect, right? We're going to go see this movie.
This is the beginning of the movie, is it not?
It is the beginning of the movie.
Okay. Yeah, because
right
away,
right out of the gate,
right out of the way, you see the giant shark attack the woman,
and you already got a shark
and
attack.
the
But
thing
you
is
never
too,
see the shark, even in the book. He doesn't describe him. You only feel this fish.
Yeah, because you don't.
So how do you?
You don't.
But if you remember the movie,
it
was
a
a while until you saw
him. He's doing a dramatic reveal. They made this giant, great white shark, and I guess Spielberg did not want you to see the immensity of how big it was, how terrifying it was.
It was, yeah.
And so, in fact, one of the slow reveals of the shark is like when the shark goes by and you see the dorsal fin, and then I think it's Brody, the chief, says we're going to need a bigger boat.
We're going to need a bigger boat
Because he sees how big the dorsal is and how long the shark is, and he's like, oh my God.
I think he did a good job of setting the stage of how the rest of the movie was going to go, with it being so suspenseful and your own imagination, because you don't see anything.
And again, if you guys could think of the scene where the shark literally jumps onto. Do you remember the name of the boat? I don't remember the name of the boat in Jaws.
No.
But anyway, when he jumps onto that boat and that big head, open mouth is on the boat, and they're like, pushing it or kicking it or throwing stuff at it. It's so terrifying. It's again, but the film is very well done, and I think that when the book is well written, it's a lot easier for the director to make a great film out of a
my
great book.
My first impression of this first chapter, being that I didn't read the book and you're reading it to me, to us, is that the book is going to be darker and probably more realistic.
Well, so I think that this is something I want.
Spielberg. If you look, I watched his documentary, and they said that from when he was younger, he was into horror. But even though he wrote things that were that could have been really horror and suspenseful, they never came out off that way.
So I think that one of the important issues that we should be discussing is that. Okay.
2 more questions.
You got more questions? Yes, you questions.
I do. I think he did a good. I don't really think that there was a lot of dramatic license with the shark attack. I think that was pretty factual.
Well, I think that if you recall, because again, there are certain images that are burned in my mind for Jaws. You know, she's in the middle of the water. I think there might be a moon in the sky, and she's treading water, and you see her head above water,
You see her
and you just see her head go under one time, which was probably the shark
Didn't he drag
taking her leg off.
Yeah.
She goes under, and he just took her whole leg off. She doesn't even realize it yet. So I think to that end, you know, you obviously the director can't say, oh, when you see her head go on there, she just lost her leg. You know, there's no narrator.
Because nothing was seen. Again, the shark wasn't seen. It's very dark. She's swimming out 100 yards from the beach. You know, that's heart pounding in itself. You are a woman alone in the ocean, 100 yards from the shoreline, and it's dark, and there's only I don't think any of us as kids, we would have been like,
I would
go in the water.
No, I would definitely do it.
I know you would, because I had to follow you 50 yards, 100 yards. You were drifting sideways.
Fun fact, water. The actual great white shark and the actual great white shark attacks that Jaws is based on happened in New Jersey. I think it was more closer to northern Jersey and southern Jersey.
I have fun facts too.
Yeah, go on.
But the other thing I wanted to say was, what did you think about the way that he wrote her death? How did it feel reading it out loud?
I thought that the death was horrific, but also the way he wrote it, he did not really articulate her horrible death and suffering. He let your imagination do that. He simply described what happened in the water, and so he described the leg being taken off. Then he described her torso being,
those were
basically snapped in half. And let's face it, when the shark, bit her in half, for certain, if she wasn't dead already, she was dead then. And you just have to imagine how horrific that death would be, which I'm sure everybody does that. Oh my God, like what if I was in the water and the shark did that to me? The other thing is though,
you can't take that noise anymore.
What?
That your chair is hitting my chair, and all I hear is squeaking.
You're out of the camera now.
Well, I'd rather be out of the camera than hear the squeaking.
All right, what else you got?
Well, I wanted to know what you felt about the way that he wrote her death, because you're an avid reader.
I think that the death.
You read a lot of people. You're well rounded.
The death was done in the mind of the reader. He didn't really describe the death on the page.
He's becoming a very suspenseful writer, and he's becoming the type of writer that pulls you in. He wants to grab your emotions. He wants you to feel it,
yes,
not see it.
Oh, well, again, I agree with you, and I think that he does a masterful job of bringing the reader in and making the reader feel like, they're the woman treading water out in the ocean, getting killed by a shark. Go ahead.
Here's another question, because I was thinking about when we were kids and we all ran to the Colonial to go see this movie, and we were all terrorized for an entire summer. None of us went in the water.
Right.
We'd stay on the beach with our parents. It's how many years later, and you read the book. How does it feel reading it now? How does it feel
49 years later?
Okay, so you read the book then, and you're reading it now. How do you think it's received when it first came out to today? If you are reading it, but if somebody were to reread it again today, how do you think it would be received?
Well, I think that
even the movie,
I think
never gets old for me.
I think that the book is so well written that it's probably still in print and paperback and everything else. And I think that, I think Peter Benchley does an amazing job with this book, and I think that it's like all good writing. It's timeless. I mean, we're not into the book yet, so I can't really I don't recall.
Oh, I'm so excited for chapter 2.
I don't recall all the details in my own head about this story, but I mean, I'm not sure how dated it is, or if there's any references to things that would make
no
place the story at because I think the shark attack in question actually happened sometime between 1910 and 1930.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was like either in the 20s or in the teens, and there was a huge great white off the coast of New Jersey, and people were killed and all. And so that's what the story is based off of. And I mean, listen, I remember, when we went to Chris Rizzo's dad's funeral and services at the lunch afterwards at Galdo's. I was talking with Rizzo's cousin, who I hadn't seen long time. And I remember he took the boat out from the bay. We went all the way out, went all the way into the ocean, and we were like in the ocean, like maybe a half a mile past $1 Million Pier in the ocean. And I remember just jumping off the side of his boat, no life preserver, no nothing, swimming around. I mean, it could have been 100 foot of water. It could have, who knows what could have been in that water. But I got a clear head. What do you want me to tell you?
I know this. So I also, well, what do you think? I mean, I don't think much of anything has changed for me. I think that I still feel like a 14-year-old sitting in the movie theater every time I watch that movie.
Listen,
I'm still tired. Nothing changes. It's nature.
I would expect that.
We still have shark meat.
I would expect that all of the emotions that one felt, either watching the movie in '76 or reading the book in '74 or whatever, they're all going to be conjured up again.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be the same emotions, because these are primal emotions: terror, fear, dread. I think that the book is masterful at scaring the living bejesus out of everyone.
It really is.
And I mean,
and then the kids that were at the lighthouse.
If you were scared then,
they were our age.
If you were scared then, you're going to be scared now.
They were our age, and let's just how does it differ from then and now? None of us had a cell phone. We couldn't call for help.
Oh no.
We were stranded
No.
at the lighthouse.
Anything you could, the best you could do was
scream.
Run up to the boardwalk and maybe use a phone on the boardwalk.
They were on the boat. The shark. Remember, the shark was trying to separate them.
Oh,
we shouldn't talk about that because.
Listen. I have an appointment at 3:00.
Me too. It is what time? Okay, I just want to know one thing.
Wow.
And I think it's something that I want to do. At the end of every chapter. So this is my question for you.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to name this, but how do you prepare?
What
do you do to get into preparation of reading a book, either out loud or? Well, right now.
I don't prepare to read myself, but I do prepare to read out loud. And what I do to prepare to read out loud is I will open the book. I will open up to the chapter I'm going to read. I'll glance at the page, and then I will run. Like in this case, I wanted to see how long each chapter was, and I looked and I was like, "Oh, good, the chapters are short," because I like it better this way. I don't want to, like, a lot of times I've read for you guys, and my voice is getting hoarse and stuff, and I can't continue to read or read to my ability, because I like to be able to change my voice, raise or lower my voice, put different inflections on it, and take the voice of different characters in the work. So the short chapters are great for me because it gives my voice a chance to recover and stuff. But so what I'll do is I look to see how many pages the chapter. Oh, good, it's short. We could do that. And then I look at the last sentence on the page, because I want to remember the sentence so that when I turn the page, there's no break in my speaking. I know you can edit all that out, but I try to read a book, if I could say it this way, with perfection. Now again, I don't always do that. So I made a couple mistakes. I stumbled over a couple of words, and then I just stopped and read that sentence over again because I know Elisa will edit them out. She might even edit this out for all I know. What do I know?
That's good. I was just curious about how you prepare to read out loud because it's kind of.
Well, I
don't really prepare when I turn.
I also have, I gotta
psych
myself up because I have to conjure up emotions because you don't want to hear someone read a story in a monotone and flat. You want to hear when the author is telling a part of the story that's exciting. Mm-hmm. The excitement should be in the reader's voice. Mm-hmm. When the author is telling something that's suspenseful or terrifying, a lot of times you lower
I like the way
voice.
You said hiss.
Yeah, you lower your voice because people now have to strain to hear you. There's things you can do. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
I'm so excited. I don't know that we're going to be able to wait a week for chapter 2.
Why do we have to wait that long?
I don't think we will.
Why don't we do more chapters?
I think we will. So, because I have my own goofy story with this, and I didn't remember it until he was talking, and I'm like, wait a minute. I have my own story about Jaws.
I think my mother took me to see Jaws at the Colonial.
I can't believe you didn't go with all us kids.
No, I was only 12 years old, or 11 going on 12. Where am I going?
You were up until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
No, but first of all, they wouldn't even let you in without an adult.
Really?
Probably. This was an R-rated movie, wasn't it?
I can't remember. I don't think so.
There's no way this is PG. It had to be R-rated. With all the gore and blood? Nah. My mother took me. I remember my mother took me.
I don't remember. I just remember going with all the kids when it was
I'll tell you, hold on, while we're talking about it. I do remember my mother taking me to Jaws. Again, I was 11 or 12.
Read it.
But I also remember going to see Rocky.
Oh, we went to go see Rocky.
I went with my buddies. Me, Cardo,
Louis
Lorenzo, Billy Agnes.
Screaming our heads off.
Listen, when we left that movie, we walked out of that movie theater. And we literally went running down Montego Avenue, and we all kind of ran home. It was great.
It was great.
And the other thing I have, one of my earliest memories was there used to be a movie theater at Broad and Snyder. It was called the Broadway Theater. And then after they knocked it down, they put up a fast food place called Gino's, which was operated by Gino Marchetti, who was a football player from Baltimore. And the Geno's were known for their Gino Giants, was the name of their sandwich. And they also, I think, were partners with Colonel Sanders, because I think they sold chicken too. And I think it might have been, they might have had an agreement where they were selling the Colonel's chicken. Anyway.
Hello in there.
I'm off.
Dump that stuff. I don't remember any of that.
I'm off the beaten path. But I remember my mother, I must have been.
Yeah, sending you for a bucket of chicken.
I must have, no, that's not the same story. I must have been 3 going on 4, or 4 going on 5. And she took me to the Broadway as a little boy to see Sleeping Beauty.
Disney.
And I remember this is back when you'd go to the movies and you would spend the whole day. So before Sleeping Beauty came on, they had a whole thing of Peanuts. So I actually bought a program of the Peanuts short that they showed. I'm talking about Charles Schultz Peanuts, Charlie Brown and all that. And so I had that program for the longest time. I finally threw it away, I think. Oh yeah, I threw it away. But I remember, just again, it's such a distant, faded memory, because I was a little boy.
Is that where you learned how to become a prince?
No.
Yeah. Just as a side note, my husband, when he says he had things, he had them pristine.
Oh yeah.
Pristine. His little friend couldn't make his 8th grade birthday party, and went because he was going to
50 years.
What was it? It was fan day.
Phillies game day. Fan Appreciation Day.
Fan Appreciation Day. The Philadelphia his little friend comes to the house and says, Johnny, I'm sorry I couldn't come to your birthday party, but I got you this autograph picture, 8.5 by 11, of Steve Carlton. Turned it over. It was the whole team. They all signed it. They gave it to John. Johnny, when I moved in and we were going through stuff, he's like, oh, look at that. Like the day he got it, it was pristine. So his little friend is now a big boy. And he came over to do the paint for us. He said, I'm gonna have him come over. I'm gonna tell him like something happened with the paint or something. I'm gonna have him come over, and I'm gonna give this to him. I'm gonna give it back to him. And our two of our other friends that we went to school with run a magazine. It's called Road Home Magazine. I said, now I'm gonna call Dawn. I'm calling Dawn and Dorette. And I'm going to tell them that I have a story for them to be published in Road Home Magazine. And I'm going to find that issue because John is in it. And they went back to where they grew up on Alder Street. And they took pictures and they told the story in the magazine. And my husband gave Mark back the photograph. He couldn't believe it. And he's like, your son is into baseball and give this to him. So when he just said that he threw out that pamphlet, that was from with the peanuts. I'm peanut people, peanut pals. I'm diamond painting them, and he threw that away, and it was probably pristine. He's still not over the fact that his mother threw all his baseball cards away. Anyway, this was great. I loved it. I was on the edge of my seat. No, I did not go for a swim. I went up to go take a shower, and then came back down, and I was like, "Do you want to read?" He was like, "Yeah." And now that he's read chapter 1. And I didn't read Peter Benchley. My father was the reader. My father and John would have got together. Forget it. I would have never saw my husband. They're identical. Sometimes I look at my husband and I see my father. Absolutely see my father. My father would have loved to have had him as a son-in-law where, they could have talked movies. They could have talked books. They could have talked anything because my father was very well read himself. They would have had a great time, and they both had a killer sense of humor. So I wrote in the community post that I was going to do this once a week after Self-Care Sunday. But when John wants to pick up the book during the week, because I know him, when he reads something, he would be done this in a day. And maybe we'll have like a movie night. Let's have a movie night. Let's do a Google get together where we all watch JAWS. There's a person at my door. All right. I love you guys. I hope that you are so excited about this read and about John reading again. I love having this content on my page. Maybe you're diamond painting. Maybe you're just listening. Maybe you're making dinner, whatever it is that you're doing. It's so much fun. I love it. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. No, I can't tell you when. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.